Okay, for this lesson, we're going to talk about conversion between fractions, decimals, and percent. I usually call it PDF. Okay? All right. First, let's talk about fractions. How do I turn a fraction into a decimal? Some fractions are really pretty. So let's say we have 1/2. I want to turn it to a decimal. I can multiply this by 5/5. Now it's important that you write the 5/5 because whatever you do the bottom, you do the top. Whatever you do the denominator, you must do to the numerator. So don't just write one single 5. Now this will give me 5/10. 10 in the denominator, or 100 or 1,000. Easy to read. 5/10 is 5/10. Because if I know my place value, I read the fraction correctly, it's easy to convert to a decimal. All right, Mr. Hewlett, what do I do if my fraction isn't as pretty? Now, turning 1/6 into a decimal, I can't multiply 6 by any whole number to get it to equal 10 or 100 or 1,000. So on a fraction like this, I am going to divide the numerator by the denominator. Top in, bottom out. Okay, 6 won't go into 1. Add a decimal, and I can add as many zeros as I need to after that. Now 6 will go into 10 once. Bring down the 0. We'll go in 6 times. As you can see, I'm sure you're noticing a pattern. Keep getting 4, so it's going to be a 6 on top in the quotient. So 1/6 equals 0.16 with the bar above it. Now it's important that you have the bar above the 6. It's not 16 that repeats, it's the 6 that repeats. Okay? So any fraction out there, you can convert it into a decimal by dividing the numerator by the denominator. Again, top in, bottom out. All right, great. Well, that's how you turn a fraction into a decimal. How do you turn a decimal into a fraction? So what if we had this, 0.5? Well, thankfully, turning a decimal into a fraction is relatively easy as long as you know the appropriate place value. This is in the tenths place. So this is 5/10. If I had 0.12, it's 12 hundredths, which is 12 hundredths. So turning a decimal into a fraction is relatively easy. Again, all you have to know is the appropriate place value, tenths, hundredths. So this is 12 hundredths. Of course, every time you simplify it, you need to simplify it to its lowest terms, 5/5, because whatever you do to the numerator, you do to the denominator, gives me 1/2. The biggest number that can go into the greatest common factor for 12 and 100 is 4, which gives me 3/25. And these are simplified to lowest terms. Now, what about percent? Well, first of all, percent means out of 100. So, if you scored a 94% on the test, that means if there were 100 questions, you would have gotten 94 of them right. Okay, we set up as a ratio. This is your part that you would have gotten right, and this is the total. Now, usually on a test, obviously, you don't have 100 questions, but we can set up a ratio. So, for example, if there were 25 questions, how many did you get right? How do I go from 100 to 25? Divide by 4. And then you divide 94 by 4, and that would give you your answer. Okay, so again, percent means out of 100. So what if I had, let's start off with 1/4. What if I had 1/4? How would I turn that into a percent? Well, there's a couple easy ways. Now again, we said percent means out of 100. Is there any way I can go from 4 to 100? Well, it's correct, times 25. Whatever you do the bottom, denominator, do to the numerator. And so this would be 25. So 1/4 equals 25%. Okay, what do you do if your fraction isn't quite as pretty? Let's just say I have 2/3. Now I can't multiply 3 by a whole number to get to 100. So what am I going to do? I'm going to convert it into a decimal. Again, to convert any fraction into a decimal, divide the numerator by the denominator. Top in, bottom out. We'll go in. So 1, whatever I just wrote. As you guys can see, we have a pattern here. The 6 is going to go on forever. So what would this be as a percent? Percent means out of 100. So if I had, I'm going to stop at 3 of them. I'm going to focus on the first two. 66 hundredths right here. 66 hundredths. Be 66 over 100. So that would be 66%. Now, this isn't 66 hundredths. That 6 goes on forever. So there's a little trick we can do. When converting a decimal into a percent, we can move our place value over 2 times, and that would give me 66.6%. Another little trick I show my students is Dr. Pepper, a soft drink. Who doesn't like the soft drink? So DP. So if I had I'm going from a decimal, and if I wanted to know the percent, I can go 2 places to the right. Why 2 places? Because it's out of 100, 2 zeros. But Dr. Pepper, a little trick, Dr. Pepper has 2 letters. We're going from a decimal to a percent, so we're going to the right. So this would give me 7.2%. Give you another example. If I had tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths, 804 100,000ths. If I wanted to convert this into a percent, I'm going from a decimal to a percent. 2 letters, or sorry, 2 place values to the right. 1, 2. So this would be again, using this little trick, going from a decimal to a percent, or vice versa, is relatively easy. Let's do one more. Let's go 802%. Now this one, we're going from a percent to a decimal. So on this one, I'm going to go 2 places to the left. So if I wanted to convert 802% to a decimal, it would be 8 2/100, and that would be your answer. So let me give you just one more. Go with 19.2%. 19 2/10%. Okay, I want to convert this into a decimal. So I'm going to move it 2 places to the left because I'm going from I know it has a decimal, but this is a percent. If it has the percent sign, it is a percent first. So I'm going from a percent to a decimal, so I'm going to the left 2 places, so 19 and 0.2% as a decimal would be and if I wanted to go from a percent to a fraction, I can convert it into a decimal first, read the appropriate place value, 192 tenths hundredths thousandths, and then simplify. Alright, so again, we just went over going between fractions, decimals, and percents. I hope this helped, and if you have any more questions, feel free to email me at jhewlett@leisd.ws. Thanks.